Now you can go and say like, look, 10,000 followers on TikTok or Instagram, but the content I post is not only here, it's also like retweeted, reshared a bunch of other times, but allowing again the creator to control that.
Anyone who's creating content should have the ability to prove they own what they make, track where that content goes everywhere.
This is Michael and Mariale, the co-founders of KINETK, and they're building IP infrastructure for the next generation of creativity. In a world flooded with AI-generated content, remixes, and deepfakes, KINETK helps creators track where their content ends up, who's using it, and how it's being monetized.
Bringing that control back to the original IP holder, we think opens up an enormous amount of creativity versus being surprised and having automated features that say, no, you can't do this.
And now, they're officially migrating to Monad. This is the story of how KINETK is building the IP layer for the modern creative economy, not just to protect what we make, but to power what comes next. When we first sat down with them, KINETK was called Trips. Since our conversation, Trips has acquired a company called Mentaport and rebranded to KINETK. Great to be here. Thrilled to have you both in New York. I know one of you had to travel quite a bit more than the other, but nonetheless, great to be here in person with the Trips team. Quick introduction from each of you in case anyone is somehow unaware at this point.
Great. I'm Michael Finkelstein, the CEO and co-founder of Trips.
I'm Mariale Montenegro. I'm the CTO, co-founder of Trips. Excited to be here.
Excited to be here. It's been a great week so far.
Awesome. Well, excited to have you here for sure. I know there's been a lot of conversation around the crossover between blockchain and IP, the creator economy. This was a viral subject on Twitter going back 4 or 5 years now, at least in the crypto sphere. But interestingly enough, there hasn't been too much conversion, I think. And, you know, a lot of these major IPs are still siloed in the Web 2 universe. I know Trips is making a big play at bringing these IPs on chain, but can you give us a little color as to what the Trips product is and what you're ultimately hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I think, and it's great to be here. Thanks for having us. We're going to dive into all sorts of topics today. I think at its core, think of Trips building IP infrastructure for the future of digital creativity. What does that actually mean? Whether you are someone that's posting, a creator that's posting on TikTok or YouTube, whether you're in the Web3 sphere making NFTs, whether you are a company that has content, whether you're just an individual that's posting on LinkedIn, the core of intellectual property are all those things and then some. And our view of the world is that anyone who's creating content, because everyone is a content creator, should have the ability to prove they own what they make, have the ability to track where that content goes everywhere across the web in real time, and also have the ability, if it's partial content, to track where pieces of that content goes. And then amalgamating both of those, we believe every one of those content creators should be able to access capital for whatever purpose, to grow their small business, to actually monetize what they're making. And at the core, beneath it all, is what we believe is a broken data business of IP that we are really aiming to fix.
What do you define as content? Is that video, audio, a dance move? What?
If you want to put on a dance move right now, we'll post it in its content. It's anything. So intellectual property is, by its core definition, so not to get kind of too down the weeds, is anything that an individual makes that's someone original that's posted to a permanent medium. So that could be someone posting on a blog post, that could be an image, that could be audio, it could be video, it could be whatever it is. And I think that's really the core of some of our real vision is we are very much media agnostic, right? It can be an image, it can be video, it could be audio, it could be...
It could be your voice.
Yeah.
Audio is actually not just music, but
Yeah.
also like how things sound from like, yeah. So
Especially with 11 labs where they're like duplicating. Yeah, I mean, in seconds you can duplicate and clone your voice and immediately have somebody as a voiceover doing
okay.
your...
So like if you want to license your voice now and you're like, okay, cool, I license my voice, but I only want this or the license only under like you can only say certain words, or you cannot say certain words. Now we can track, and when we track it, they could be like, wait a minute, this provider that's distributing my voice is actually breaking the contract of like you're using the words that I said not to. So it's allowing people to really track their IP.
Interesting.
I can definitely relate personally. Around, I want to say 2011, 2012, I started producing music on my laptop, started with GarageBand, and, you know, got really
I
into
remember GarageBand.
playing around with samples. And one of the first things that I did at the start of my producer journey was to take a song that was already in existence, drop it into GarageBand, and essentially remix it, see what I could create from someone else's either, you know, sample or, you know, full song. But one of the issues that I would constantly run into is I couldn't post it anywhere because SoundCloud would take it down, YouTube would take it down. And I wasn't trying to monetize. I was, for all intents and purposes, just trying to create art. And I was happy to credit the original creator, but I wanted to put that out there into the world.
Yeah.
And especially back then, it was so prohibitive. You know, there were all sorts of tricks that creators were doing, like, oh, if you make the first minute of your song silent, then, you know, the scrubbing features on SoundCloud won't catch it. And, you know, I just think, like, how much more creativity does it open up if new artists, music, other forms of content, but in this example, music, like, if I can, you know, credit someone for a song, but make something really cool out of it, put my own spin on it, like, how much more creativity does that unlock for creators? How much more opportunity?
So I'll say we don't need another question. We could talk about this for 40 minutes, okay? But we won't. Let me start, then I'll turn it over to Mariale. I think a couple of things, right? You're absolutely right. Music took very much a lead, right? Even post Napster, the notion of how music is controlled was really kind of taking the lead. There wasn't really a creator economy at the time. There was the start of one. YouTube had just started the monetization program, you know, and what happened, I think part of our thesis is that the original IP holder should have the ability to control what happens, okay? So think of me as an IP holder. Maybe I'm the producer of that original song or video, what have you. I want to know that you're doing that because I might say to you, no problem. Appreciate it, great promotion, do what you want, and just give me some credit. And by the way, most people don't give the credit, right? And we've talked to owners of wedding photography that all they want sourcing credit and they don't get it. But the ability for me to say, you know what, go do it. Or, you know what, I'd like you to pay me a little something on your work or just what have you, bringing that control back to the original IP holder, we think opens up an enormous amount of creativity versus being surprised and having automated features that say, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. And that is where we think we're do you have anything to add?
No, I think it was, you basically give it, because what we're seeing with creators is that, like, and mostly with, like, for example, influencers, that, like, the way they make money today is, like, with brand deals. If now you can go and say, like, look, my content is, I have, whatever, 10,000 followers on TikTok or Instagram, but the content I post is not only here, it's only also, like, retweeted, reshared a bunch of other times, so anything I put out, it's actually seen this extra amount of time. So maybe they don't want you to take down. It's like, yeah, keep reposting it because you're giving me my audience plus your audience, and that gets me a bigger deal. But allowing, again, the creator to control that and own that.
We talked about that yesterday. Is like that's where I see it, especially, you know, some of these creators that are growing significantly fast is because they're enabling these clip farmers and people to produce it and put it out there. And they're not telling them pull it down, like, we want you to do it more. Right. But then what it does is it gives you, like, real data points to showcase what the impact of your content is. Totally. And I think that's a huge unlock for a creator.
Really trying to bring infrastructure to flipping the script around IP. Most IP has really been based on where you post, right? So where am I posting? That's what you hear. Where am I posting? Where am I posting? How about where it's consumed?
Yeah.
Right. So changing the notion of intellectual property to say, yeah, where you're posting is important, but where it's being consumed is far more important because it drives real decisioning to you, whether that's economic, whether it's source credit, whatever it may be. And by the way, this is not just individual creators. We've had half a dozen conversations with some of the biggest media companies in the world around them being totally blind to what happens to their content after they post it. And that is where I think you have an enormous unlock, like what you're saying.
Definitely. It's pretty clear. We're probably 5 minutes in, but I think the what is trips and the why trips matters is already abundantly clear. But what's also interesting is this is being built on blockchain rails. Why blockchain?
The best, like when we were developing the technology, we really wanted to break it down into like, what is the best tech to solve this issue? We didn't want to be like, oh, let's ride the wave, it has to be Web3. It's more like, which is the best tech? And when we broke it down, it's like, we want to give the control back to the creator, and we are truly opening the web. It has to be in a place that the creator owns. It has to be in a place that everyone else can also see and observe. So allowing the attribution to be and the provenance to be in a blockchain really allows everyone and anyone to really see and prove, versus being like, what does Trip server say it is? Versus like, no, you can truly just test where the things are. And we can only make sure that the creator is the one that owns it. So if the creator wants to change something related to their IP, they're the ones that could do it. And like, it'll be attested on chain. So that's kind of like the first premise. And then when we start really like understanding like decentralized tracking and understanding where content is, we don't want to be like crawlers of the internet, siloed, aka like OpenAI crawling all the internet. We want the community to be part of it. We want to make sure that everyone knows where the content is, and that's open. And like, again, the best place to do that is really focusing on like that blockchain. And when we talk to our creators, we don't say like, oh, are you Web 2, are you Web 3? We're all both, right? Like, we'll have an Instagram account and we probably have wallets. So what are you, a Web 2 creator or Web 3? So it's more of like platforms are different, but people are the same. So it really is about like putting the tech under and creating technology that we all use.
I actually, personally, I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately, and I am extremely guilty in terms of using the term Web3. But the more I reflect on it and the more time goes along with blockchain becoming a bit more mainstream, more commonly known in most households, I think Web3 is actually somewhat damaging because you didn't have Instagram and Facebook and this Web 2 movement coming out declaring we're a new internet. It makes it, in my opinion, way more complicated for the end user to understand because people don't understand what the internet is to begin with. Now you're telling them, oh, there's a new internet.
Yep.
And I totally agree with that approach where it's just about creators and, hey, this is a tool that you can utilize for your own benefit in many ways. But I'm also curious, back to the subject of blockchain, what do you need in a blockchain? There's many solutions out there. You clearly evaluated a lot of different options beyond blockchain before getting to the decision, hey, this is a blockchain-based product because it actually makes the most sense for what we're trying to accomplish. What do you need in a blockchain?
Yeah, I think we need many things, but to keep it like simple, and that's one of the reasons why we're basically building here in Monad, is speed. And I think it's something that people don't really understand. It's like when we talk about Web 2 content, I mean, we just say let's not break it, it's the amount of content that's being published. If you think about like how many pieces of content TikTok posts a minute, or how many people are scrolling down, it's a lot. So if we're going to start being like tokenizing this type of IP on chain, we need a chain that can go that fast because that's where the creators are. So like one of the biggest things we're seeing is like one chain can actually survive the amount of speed that we need. So at the end of the day, users are used to flawless experiences. We can't be like, oh, sorry, because you're using us, you have to wait 3 minutes while we mint. What? No, that's not going to happen. They're going to go to another platform. And that platform's probably going to be not on the rails that we're building, so they won't get the benefits. But I think for us, the biggest one was outside of like, it has to be reliable and all the other stuff that you look for a blockchain, like are you actually decentralized? Where are your nodes? Who's backing you up? Who's your community? And all these other things you see, but it's also the technology behind the tech. Like, and we really fell in love with Monad.
Yes, we did. And by the way, by the time everyone views this, it will be public that we're migrating to Monad. As we film this, it is not. But when everyone, hopefully everyone sees this, we will have announced that we have migrated to Monad, which is incredibly exciting. The team here, the community has been nothing but spectacular.
I think the consumer apps that build on blockchain rails, the consumer's just not even going to know. They're not going to care. They're not going to know. They just want it to work.
I always tell people, like, when you put a movie on Netflix, do you know if Netflix is hosting in AWS, in Azure, and Google Cloud? No, you don't, and you don't care. You just want to click play, and it better be in high resolution. That's all you care. That's all you care.
My mom still doesn't know the difference between Wi-Fi and internet.
She's dialing up still, right? Okay.
She's wondering, like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And as we were kind of mentioning here, there's been a few different approaches in terms of like, how does IP and blockchain intersect in a way that actually is usable for the world and beneficial for all these different types of creators. And my understanding is you're taking a rather unique approach and kind of going out and meeting the creators where they're at.
Correct.
I know you have some pretty exciting partnerships with some large platforms, but would love to understand a little bit more about those partnerships and ultimately how those integrations will work. And ultimately what kind of this overall flow is for a creator who's going to benefit from trips.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll turn to Mariale on how we're different from a blockchain standpoint. But we look at ourselves as, and this really comes from Mariale's background in Apple, right? Everyone's a creator. That being said, where a lot of the content creation is today is in the typical Web 2. And so one of the ways we decided to your point about not having them need to understand blockchain or what have you, is go to them where they are. And so we do have API level integrations with YouTube and with TikTok right now. So any YouTuber or TikToker can come to Trips. 3 clicks, you don't even know it's running on your blockchain, and all the magic happens behind. It's a very Web 2 interface, but we are that connection layer to allow them that slow migration to why blockchain is so important. And then all the tools that we've talked about coming into play. We have future integrations with platforms about to come that we'll announce. But to Mariale's point's a good one, which is, we don't like the term Web 2 creator or Web 3. We really are all creators. And so how do we create a frictionless environment across the web that anyone can use the tools that we are building? If you're using Trips, we're going to be on Monad. We are working with some big enterprises right now that are using our tech through SDK, where it's going to live with them, and they're going to be able to access some of the tracking and analytics around it. And so really building this agnostic view that content doesn't live necessarily within silos, especially in the future, as parts of your content are going to appear everywhere. And how do you solve that problem in the future?
No, and I think that's going to Michael's point, why we're not like building an L1. Because again, we are trying to make sure we are breaking this siloed. We want to make sure that if somebody, for some reason, wants to use our SDK, but wants to put it in another chain, or they want to do something different, we don't want to block them. Take the tech, here's the smart contracts, and like deploy it. So we really want to make sure that it is an experience for the creator, and the people that are integrating can own also like parts of it.
Does that help answer the question? I mean, we can, you know, when we think about the notion of, even within Monad, right? We want our tech to be able to be used across the board from other players that are looking at IP here. And so we are, though, very focused on integrations with some of the biggest platforms out there, because that's where the content is. That's where the audience is today. Let's be fair, right? Web3, to your point, from a content consumption standpoint, is not materialized the way maybe at the velocity which we thought, right? So the audience is there, the money's there, the content creators are there. We are bringing that forward, and we're doing it hopefully in a way that actually makes a lot of sense.
How are you guys tracking this? Like, how is it going to actually track the content where it's at? Yeah.
That's a good question. So our tech is broken into 2 pieces. When we have developed the most robust invisible watermark technology that embeds actually in the image, in the piece of audio, or in a video.
But it's not like you don't see it, right?
No, it's completely invisible. You cannot see it. It's extremely hard to remove as well. It survives screenshots, recording, compressions.
Sound separation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then once you put that out, we just look for that beacon, which is basically, think about it as we put a cryptographic key inside the piece of content. When we find the key, the smart contract tells us what it is. So we don't even know what we're tracking. We just know, like, this is a X5C, and then the smart contract is like, ooh, that's a song from blah. or that's an actual image. So that's one side of our tech. The other side of a tech is like for watermarking, well, there is an extra step for the user. You need to give it content, put a watermark, give it back, do whatever you want with it. So we were like, okay, it's great for some type of our clients, but we also need to like create something that allows for people that have already published stuff out, or people that are like on the go, just putting stuff in TikTok and YouTube, or like just the current creators' behaviors. So we have developed what we call like a hybrid approach, which is like heavily AI-based fingerprinting matched with watermarking, which allows us to learn from the content and then really be able to understand where it is. We also have AI agents that are completely learning where the content could appear, so we can very quickly start understanding where the content is. And then I can pass it to you if you want to jump into the sentinels.
Yeah, so I heard wow, which is always a great compliment. No, the tech, the watermarking is transformative, right? And I'll just add that a lot of the bigger enterprises are leaning in here because it allows them, before they publish something, whether it's an ad that's running here, or whether it's a song that's uploaded to Spotify, or whether it's someone's voice of someone they represent, they can actually put it through the watermarking and then track it across the board, which is transformative and game-changing. And it's not just the whole content, up to 5 seconds. So anything beyond 5. So if I clip 11 seconds of a music song and it's watermarked, it'll be picked up. So it's not just full content. So this is where you start moving into derivative rights and samples and all sorts of things that we talked about. On the hybrid version, reality is there's a lot of content out there right now, right? And so the notion of how that manifests is super interesting. Giving a little secret sauce for the future, we are going to be rolling out a Sentinel program where anyone in a decentralized way can actually engage in this ecosystem, run an AI agent, and actually be part of protecting IP cross-platform in a really simple way. Just a little sizzle for the fall of what's to come.
I definitely want to dive in more on the AI side of things and some of these teasers that we're looking at. But Michael, you mentioned a little bit about Mariale's background, working on my American accent. Apologies, but you mentioned previously worked at Apple. This is clearly a very ambitious endeavor overall. I'm curious to learn a little bit more about each of your backgrounds, and also, you know, what was the inspiration to go out and like make this happen?
Yeah. So I'll give a minute or two on myself. I'll let Mariale do the same, and then we can circle back to the inspiration. So reformed banker, ended up, fortunately at Stanford, going and getting my MBA and worst in the Valley, and I got the bug, couldn't kick it, and I've been building ever since. I think the two most germane ventures to Trips were in 2008. I helped build a music company that aggregated copyrights, and we became one of the largest owners of music copyrights that exited in 2012. So really started understanding, again, pre-creator economy, the importance of intellectual property as an underpinning to creativity. At that time it was mostly music and musicians. Obviously it's become more expansive. And when you look at it, it was this real, no one was talking about IP, by the way, back then. I mean, it wasn't on everyone's lips, and it was this old and kind of misunderstood asset class, but it really was the basis for how creators could have a path to financial independence and financial stability and financial freedom. Took a year or two off, and then ended up starting what would become one of the larger fintech lending and data businesses called the Credit Junction. Built that for 5.5 years. And I say that in a way that, what does it take to bring in lots of data and technology and open up markets, right? Opening up access to capital. So we did that with small businesses at the time. Receivables, inventory, equipment, this is post-crisis. So if you think about both of those two things, we lead to the foundation, at least from my perspective, of Trips, and thinking through the next generation of IP as an asset class, IP as provenance, as an undercurrent to creativity. How do we bring, for me, those two past ventures into something that is really interesting? And this, I would say, is a culmination of those last two for me.
I'm not a former banker. I've been a developer since like around middle school, high school. So I really started coding and hacking when I got obsessed with the idea that everyone tells you like, oh, we all have a brain in biology, we're all the same. We're all so different. I'm like, okay, bullshit. So then I was like, wait, we all have a computer and the computers are all the same. That means, can we make a computer see the world differently, react to the world differently, depending who's using it? So I really dived into like the hacking of like sensors, cameras, signal processing, computer vision, deep learning, and really understanding how to really make a computer react to the world differently, depending who is using it. So did all my career, computer science, AI, and really kicked off my career in a company called Magically when we were just really starting. And then I'm really leading the R&D AI team there, pushing a lot of like tools to really, again, and Magically we used to say like everyone's a magician. We really were creating like, for those that don't know Magically, think about like the Vision Pro 3 years ahead of its time. It's incredible because that's where I got exposed to blockchain because we started seeing crazy amount of data passing through the sensors. We were like, wait, when someone's sad, they look at shoes. When someone's hungry, they do X, Y, Z. And we were like, this is data that should not be in a centralized CRM. Like you should control what, like you want to know, like you need to be, because they could get a lot of people in a lot of trouble. Ethereum had come out, so we really started exploring like decentralized AI training, privacy, and I fell in love with KITETK. I was like, blockchain technology is definitely a key for the future of privacy, the future of like how we interact in this internet. Moving forward, move to Apple. I can't talk much about what I did at Apple, but
That's a good thing, I think.
so similar stuff, a lot of like R&D stuff, and kind of like that's where I started seeing the rise of deepfakes. And I was like, we need to protect for what I think is one of the most important things of humankind is creativity. So sure, it can be a people, but for me, it's really creativity. That's what makes us different from computers. That's what makes us different from AIs. And I was like, how do we protect creativity and how do we start really tracking where that is and the provenance of it? So I really was like, what tools do we need to build to truly understand that? Because I do want everyone to build with AI. I've been building AI like tools with AI for creators my entire career. So it's like, I don't want this to stop. I don't want people to be like, don't use AI. No, use it. It's amazing. But let's make sure we know what is what and where is the human input. Even if it's just the prompt, that still takes some gut to like come like put it together and like really evaluate it. So like really understanding that's the main tooling of like the tech. So I can get very technical very quick, but let's leave it.
I think high school students all over the world love that statement. Like it's still work if you're putting in a prompt. Like.
But that goes to like we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Is I think some of these publishers are discussing currently of like not paying out when you utilize AI stuff. So like there's applications like Suno that you can produce music, and then I mean I'm literally getting fed in my Spotify playlists AI music, and every model is getting to a point where you almost cannot tell yet. It's getting to a point, and then they're also talking about potentially not paying out rights on that, which is a really interesting conversation of where the boundaries and the lines are of like, if I'm taking lyrics that I created, putting it in there and then producing something, like there is still a level of creativity. Like I input that wouldn't have happened. I also know 2 people that can use the same AI tool and not get the same outputs.
Totally.
Like one person is really good at it and vice versa. So I think it is an interesting path. I don't really have a question in this.
No, but it's similar. I think the way sometimes I like to explain it also is like just spell check, right? Spell check is machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, it's like, wow, this is cool. Now it's just in everyday life. Like you write and it's gonna be spell check. Doesn't mean that's not like yours because now it's spelled correctly. Like, and I think that's kind of like what's going to start happening with AI a lot. It's going to be like, yes, maybe it's created like differently because it passed through some filters, but it's going to be like whoever put it in. And we're seeing it more and more. Like if you take a picture with an iPhone or a Pixel, the image is mostly generative. Like they take a bunch of pictures and then they compose the best one. So does that mean you didn't take the picture? It's like, well, you did. You had to be in that place and like press it. Yes, AI made sure that your eyes were open and like the sun was pointing differently. Okay, but you still had to do that. And like, so I think there's a lot of regulation. And part of what we're trying to do is not really fight that regulation per se, but like, can we track it? Can we like make sure you know where it is?
Yeah.
So when you have a question, when you have like a doubt, you can at least be like, oh, this is from this person or my content is here.
And I'll just add one thing to that because I think none of us at this table know what it's going to look like in a couple of years. We are really early days, right? I mean, we are really early days. What I am fairly confident in is that, whatever that is, it's going to start with who owns what and where is it. And to us, if that's the starting point from where everything else grows, that's where we're focused.
One thing that also is interesting to think about is like, so I created a business last year. It was like a card game, and I had to trademark the logo. And the process for that is insane.
Yes, it is.
And the time duration, it's like you'll hear back in 6 months, and you might not even get your money back if they deny it. So do you see what you're building being able to hopefully facilitate some of that?
Yeah, so I'll nerd out a little on IP. So IP is really 4 different pillars, okay? It's what we've been talking about is copyrights for the most part. What you're talking about is trademarks. There's patents, and then there's trade secrets and some ancillary things. What's interesting around intellectual property is copyright is one of the few assets in the world and the only IP asset that does not need to be registered to prove ownership, right? It's first use. You do something, okay. Trademarks by law in every country, you have to go through a registration process, as do patents. With all that being said, we are actually, which is not announced, working on a really interesting research project with a well-known global organization around how you can start codifying intellectual property, really codifying it jurisdictionally, and the nuances that that entails on-chain. And can you build real smart contract infrastructure to actually replace some of the things that you're talking about? Now, we are years away from that. But there's some very smart groups and very smart people starting to think about this. But the first step to us, I think it's because it's slightly easier, is the copyright, because there's no registration barrier, like you said, and it's not 6 months. Like the minute you do something, you publish it, 70 years plus your natural life for the most part, right? And so we're taking, by the way, if you think about that digital transaction, that digital signature right there, that's the core, or the starting point of the core of what we're thinking about and what we're doing. And so I wish I could say yes, but if we can figure out how to change 160 governments around the world, let me know.
Well, that's what's interesting, is because I know like people who manufacture toys or products in other countries, like a lot of the issues that they come up with or end up dealing with is like you pay them to manufacture a product, and then when the doors are closed, they still continue to do it and then sell it as knockoffs, and that's where like
walk outside here,
yeah, exactly. They're just right down on the street.
It is a global problem.
But I think blockchain is probably the closest way to begin to think about.
I think certificating trademarks and patents on chain will happen. I think we're a little ways away from that, unfortunately, but we'll see. I've been proven wrong a lot in my life, so.
I'm interested, we talked a good bit about AI on the creator side and the copyright side. Michael, you shared a little bit about the content boom that, I guess we're going to use Web 2 again. Web 2 led to a content boom. AI definitely starting to lead to a very new type of content boom. How, even beyond the IP side of things, how does this play out in terms of when I open Instagram or TikTok or whatever the app of the future is, and I scroll in 2027, 28, 29, what do we think the consumer experience looks like on these social applications?
That's a great question. I'll turn to the consumer and the product experience a little to Mariale, given her background. I will say something on the business experience, because I do think eventually we are moving to a world where there's going to be compensation that flows down to a host of people in a very kind of derivative rights kind of way. And I think you're starting to see that with some of the bigger AI companies paying license deals for big content providers like the Washington Post or what have you. At some point that's going to translate globally, and it's going to translate in a way that I don't yet foresee. But the notion of how that manifests down to monetization, I think we're going to see the same thing that we saw in 2003 and 2004 when MySpace was around and what have you, which is it's coming. And when it happens, we hope the content creators with the data richness that they can track will be the recipients of that. That's what I'll say. What do you think from a product experience?
No, I think that from a product experience in the next 3 years, the way we interact with social platforms can be very, very different. Like just right now, we're having an explosion of like agentic agents, and I think it is going to be pushing. And like this number, like a lot of people have been talking about like owning your algorithm and really understanding what you see, and I think it's going to be heavily into that. So a lot of like, you know what, I really want to see maybe Gen AI music, and like having your agent really clean your scroll for you, really understanding like this is what I want, this is what I don't want. Maybe there will be new apps, but I do believe it's going to be a place where like there's going to be so much content overload, but also so many great tools for you to optimize that it's still going to be like, I'm still looking at my friends, because now, yes, you're throwing me a ton of content, but now I have cool agents that are going to just like
Curate.
yeah.
Nice.
So it's going to be a very different way to interact. And I think the main platforms are going to have to start evolving. Like you mentioned Spotify. They need to start evolving, right? Because like Spotify is right now getting overcrowded by music. And there's a point where you just cannot keep having more music. So it's like, where is the economics starts like dipping the wrong way.
Or even, I guess, like, Spotify is for music, but I have more music discovery come from TikTok, which is like,
So, actually something that I've been getting a ton of people telling me, they are doing music discovery through LLMs. Hey, ChatGPT, give me the top 10 bands that are actually like this. Because it curates for you immediately. It's like, you know what, there's 10 ones. Make sure they don't contain AI. And it's like, oh, wow. And I haven't done it myself, but I've heard it a lot by a lot of Gen Z people. And I'm like, interesting. And they're like, yeah, like, this is like, and I think a lot of, again, agentic people are going to come in and people are scrap AI. It's like, but the good tools are coming. Like, we can help you sort through the madness that we've also created.
Yeah, I think we almost saw this like a microcosm, and not directly related to AI, but with music in particular during COVID, when all the concerts were shut down, theaters, clubs, nothing. Creators or musicians, DJs really had to focus on digital platforms in order to be able to continue to grow their following and monetize. And ultimately what that resulted in was a lot of DJs and electronic musicians and producers focused only on creating content and audio that had the potential to go viral on these short platforms. So rather than making a 2 or 3 minute full song or God forbid making an album, which you almost never see anymore, they're making 1 minute clips, uploading to TikTok, uploading to Instagram, and trying to push virality through those algorithms. And then the Spotify and Apple Music and other streaming platforms were almost like a tailwind of their virality on those social platforms. And I say this just because I'm actually realizing in real time how quickly these shifts can happen. And some of them are brought about by technological advancement. Some of them are brought about by acts of God, if you will, like a pandemic that changes the way that we interface with society. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see that play out. I certainly hope there's better curation, especially on Twitter. I am in pain on Twitter these days. The algorithm is torturing me, but I come back every single day. So,
well, I mean, there you go.
a question I have is like, are people going to be able to retroactively go back? So content that has been produced and created in the past, are they going to be able to go and add those watermarks? And then also, are there safeguards to prevent people from, say, copywriting or watermarking things that they didn't actually create?
On the retroactive aspect, yes, people can come back and like re-watermark content that's been already published. We definitely think it's a good idea. But also, once the content's out, you cannot delete the content. So even if you tell Spotify, like, please take my song out and put this new one out, yes, they'll do it, but that song that was released is already leaked. So that's where like our hybrid approach really comes into content that has already been deployed, finding it through that big push that we're doing.
Yeah.
I'll pass it to you in the list.
Yeah, and we're probably 3 months away enterprise-wise from the hybrid. But one of the things we realized, to your point, is there's a lot of content out there right now. So we don't want to create friction where someone needs to re-upload it and what have you. Moving forward, we'll be able to roll that out in a really, I think, hopefully sophisticated way that doesn't kind of create friction, but allows people the tools, or at least a set of the tools available to them to track stuff that they've put out already.
I was just gonna say, I don't want to cut you off at all, but I've been like pretty blown away learning about trips this past week, and
Thank you.
I think it's largely just because of the obvious need for this. Like, I can understand it as a former like amateur musician. Jessup can understand it as a longtime video creator in many other mediums. But I would imagine there's been a lot of challenges in putting this together. What's been, I guess, the biggest challenge that you've faced, either individually or as a team?
Oh, it's been simple the last 3 years. What do you? It's just been a cakewalk. No, I think there are kind of two things that come to my mind. First, education's hard. You know, educating, especially with outside the last 6 months, because the 6 months has really kind of accelerated this. But educating a creator why this is so important for what is about to happen was it's challenging. Now, the last 6 to 9 months, you're already starting to see people get it, right? They're already understanding the impact of LLMs and AI, and oh, this is mine, but it's appearing here. I didn't even know that, and all of these things, the light bulb is starting to go off. Like, I should get my shit together, right? And so that has been a journey. I think, candidly, the second part is, as you can probably, glean, we really are deep believers that blockchain is the right technology to use this. But blockchain hasn't always, over the last 3 or 4 years, been the most positive wording, whether it's going through FTX SBF or some other things. And so those macro, are you a crypto business? Are you doing NFT? Like, what are you doing? Especially as you talk to where content resides today, I think was early days challenging. Again, really diminished the last 6 to 12 months. And so both of those from a tailwind perspective have kind of turned a little, which is why we're so excited to be here. Thank you for the kind words, and so excited to be launching on Monad.
Well, I definitely want to hear from Mariale as well, but you reminded me on the education front of something that Jessup and I can certainly relate to, and that's in spreading the word about Monad in the early stages. One of the fundamental principles that the Monad co-founders really had as like a non-negotiable design choice was the system has to be globally decentralized. But especially now in crypto, users don't really care. And that makes sense. We talked about Netflix. You want to see what you want to see in high quality, on demand, quickly, no issues, great. Totally understand that. But every year, every 2 years, something happens, and the people that are in crypto have this awakening as to why decentralization matters. Mm-hmm. And probably most recently was FTX debacle, and all over Twitter right after that, you had people going, oh, not your keys, not your coins. I don't see any of that now. But undoubtedly, there's going to be another issue with a centralized platform in the future. And then all of a sudden, everyone's educated again. So it really is, I think, just a product of things playing out, and it only matters when it matters, I guess.
And you said it earlier. Who knows? It's an act with God, right? I mean, that's going to change his behavior.
Yeah.
I love that, like, to kind of take on his point, but anytime somebody hears crypto or blockchain, they immediately think of something financial, or you guys are using the tech as tech. And it's actually very comforting to hear how it's being utilized, where it's not token first and these things that people traditionally think of. And I think it's a really cool way. You guys have a unique opportunity to educate people in how this technology can be utilized in a way that is separate from that.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and we're excited to expose it to the Monad community, because I think this community is going to get what we're trying to do, and we're going to ask that community to help us educate. and become a part of it. And that's why we're really excited to kind of be here. And like I said, by the time everyone views this, we'll be public around the fact around Monad, but we're thrilled that you guys have given us this kind of support.
Monad community, you heard it. All right, there's got to be some challenges on the technical side.
Oh, wow. Yes, for sure. Plenty. I think that the biggest challenge that I can think of is when you focus a lot on like R&D and doing things for like corporate, like when I was working at Apple, timelines are different. Expectations are very different. And when you move into founder mode, it changes. Like you need to move fast because the market moves fast. And most of the last 3 years, AI has exploded. So it's even faster. It's not just tracking content, it's tracking content plus the amount of extra content that's now being proliferated thanks to AI. So like really making sure that we keep pushing and keep deploying and failing fast, failing often, and like something doesn't work, put it aside, but keep pushing. Like you can't stay too long in something. You need to really be critical on like what you're building, but having a goal very clean. I mean, like, how am I going to get there? And is my algorithm getting me there? And if it's not, what is it blocking it? Is it more time? Is it more data? Or is it more like, wait, there's a better algorithm? So really moving fast. And I think that's part of like why we work so well together. You need a team that you can feel safe and comfortable. You need someone that you can support, that is split, like, you know, because without that, then it's just crazy. And like more now with how AI is like rolling. And now that creators are being more like, we want this, we want this, we want this. That's why we developed like the hybrid approach. We saw the need of like old content and changing behavior with old content. They were like, there's no way we can take down my YouTube video to Watermark it because I lose the views. Not happening. So it's like, okay, we need to solve that. Correct. We need to solve that. Easy as that. How do we solve that? We cannot be like, no, change behavior, change the tech.
How big is your guys' team?
Small, less than 10 people. You know, we try to iterate quick. Most of that's on the tech product side with some business side. And I think Mariale said it well. And, you know, intellectual honesty internally, like how rigorous can you be? And you know, breaking things is okay. And but getting to the right product market fit, I think, is critical. But we're less than 10 people. Yeah.
Lean team, love it. We do have one more question that we always ask on the Pipeline podcast. However, it is not our own question. So we probably should be stamping this for Kobe and Ledger's Up Only podcast.
Okay.
Greatest crypto podcast of all time, but we steal this question from them, which is the final alpha. And it doesn't have to be alpha in the traditional crypto sense. It can be any parting message that you want to leave the viewers with, advice to other builders in the space, learning that you had throughout your time as a builder. It could be something like a quote from a movie that you just really like, or it could be a shout out to your mom. Anything and everything is welcome for the final.
Go first?
My favorite quote, nonsense wakes up the brain cells.
Whose quote is that?
I'll leave it there. Audience, go find it.
Okay, I'm gonna find it. Well, first, shout out to my mom. Okay, because I can't do that. You said it, and I don't do it because I know she's gonna watch this. Okay, okay. Hi, Mom. So, Teddy Roosevelt wrote something called The Arena. He wrote a speech called The Arena. He was good in citizen. You know it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Founders live that speech. That's what they do. They get knocked down, they toil, they get back up. And it's okay to get knocked down. Keep getting back up, keep getting back up, keep getting back up. That's what it takes. And anyone who hasn't read that speech, Jessup has, should read it, live it, if you're interested in building something special.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great pleasure. Really excited to have had the opportunity in person, no less. Really excited. Trips on Monad. Just getting started.
Love it. Thanks for
Probably
having us.
one of the longest episodes that we could have went on forever.
Oh yeah, this could have been all day.
Thanks.
We didn't have a hard stop.
Great chat.
Great.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Awesome.
We'll see you the rest of the week.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank
All
you
right.
guys.